Hello, everyone, and welcome to the QT2 Systems, My Journey to Kona series. Today, we are welcoming our athlete. Our featured athlete today is Ryan Zelinski, and we also have with us today his mission plan coach, and Basso. And I neglected to introduce myself. My name is Ryan Zelinski, and I'm the QT2 content director. So welcome, Ryan. Welcome, Anne. Thank you for joining us today.
Guys.
All right, Ryan, we are going to get started with you. So first question, when did you start participating in the sport of triathlon?
So my sister and I, we went to our first triathlon in Miami, Ohio, and that was in 2013. So we had no clue what we were doing and getting ourselves into, honestly. We just kind of said, I remember her just saying, okay, hey, there's this triathlon. We're going to go do it and see how it goes. And we just found whatever mountain bike that we had from when we were growing up and never swam before, like laps or anything. I mean, we had been to the beach and the pool and everything, but we never, put the goggles and the cap and everything on and went and swam laps. So that was definitely a first experience. So the pool down there was absolutely gorgeous. It's probably to this day one of the most amazing facilities I've ever seen in Oxford. It's unreal. It really is. It's Olympic size, has the dives and everything. It's like something you see on TV. So I was just like, I don't know what we're getting ourselves into. So we went down there and just kind of, we were just kind of amazed by the sport itself, really. It was on April 20th, 2012. Sorry, I said 2013. It was on April 20th, 2012. So what's that, 10 years ago? And yeah. I mean, I still feel like it was yesterday. I just remember driving down there, and we'd never been to the campus or anything. We got there and there were just all these people with like all the kits on and everything. And we just had like a shirt and like a pair of shorts on. We had no, so it was just an eye opener for sure. And I can't necessarily say that I fell in love with it then. But I did know that I enjoyed it. And prior to that, I was a baseball and football player. So that's kind of where my heart was. I was a collegiate baseball player. And my dad coached football for 50 years. So I just had that in my blood, just growing up, being around those games. And this was just kind of an eye opener. I'd always ran and lifted and everything just to stay in shape for the seasons and everything. Mm-hmm. But I never really did it competitively until then. So I didn't really know what to think then. And then just kind of got more into training really after that.
All right. So that was April of 2012. Said you didn't immediately fall in love with it, but you obviously kept racing. So what was next for you?
I want to say it was my sister and I there for a couple of years, and she also competed in some Ironman 70.3s, and she also finished IRONMAN Couer Alene, and I think that was her main goal as far as the sport goes. So I think we did the Philly Marathon. We did a couple other marathons, and that was really it for marathon wise. And I just strictly stuck to triathlon. I had a couple good marathon times. I mean, like low 3 hours, like 3:03, 3:04, but I was just kind of to the point, like my body type and everything. And just like the training, I was like, I just like I did all, like I played baseball and football my whole life. Mm-hmm. Like I don't have just a running body. So I kind of just put my, 2 cents together and like, I'm just going to stick with triathlon. Mm-hmm. And, it was the Great Floridian. I have the date down. That was October, I want to say 18th, 2013. And I think that's when I fell in love with the sport itself. It was really challenging. So I think the challenge itself and just that distance is what I fell in love with the most. And prior to that, I'd never done really anything distance wise. Like I said, I did a few marathons, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah. So you went from sprint triathlon to Ironman distance in a year and a half.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
had a bit of all, and I wasn't coached at the time, obviously. I had the background with, baseball and football. I did a lot of running. I mean, pretty much my whole life. My friends and I, growing up out in the country, we would go out and just run, just make obstacle courses, and just, growing up, that was just something we would do. Like, okay, run up this hill, run up that hill, do this, do that. And just growing up, my dad being like a diehard football coach, which he was and is known for, I was always around sports. So, I mean, I would see high school, college athletes running, sprinting, track people, cross country people, football players, running and all that. So I just fell in love with sports, really.
Yeah.
At an early age. Yeah. Yeah, I can remember just stories from when I was 2, just being around, really.
All right. So 2013, first Ironman distance event. You've done a few of them since then, right? About how many in the past, like in the last 10 years, what would you say? How many races have you done?
After that, I actually just remember, like, my mom and I drove down to Florida for the Great Floridian, and I remember, I mean, it's like a 2-day drive, so we talked. I was just like, I literally thought I was dead. Like, I mean, I'd been tired in my life. Like, there were games I caught in high school and played in college, double headers, hard baseball games and football games and everything, and caught triple headers. And you kind of fall in love with that feeling, like, how far can I push myself, just through other sports. So I got that out of that distance, and I'm just like, this is definitely the distance for me. I've also done a lot of 70.3s, obviously. I feel like the two they're equally in themselves, just a little shorter, not really though, because they still have their challenges. I mean, there's 70.3s I've done that are just as hard as Ironmans, and they really are, because I know it's a lot less time, but you're still pushing a course in the day. And I mean, my sister and I, we raced in New Orleans the one year where the hurricane that hit the Woodlands went through. So, I mean, that was one of the hardest races I've ever done in my life. And people will tell you, at the time, I think we were on Timex that was around for, I want to say 35 years or more. And I remember we just like had our kits on, and we're just like, okay, we kind of fit in now. Like, we went from like the shorts and like a t-shirt to like a kit that has a name on it and everything.
Yeah.
But I would say, just with all the races and everything that I've done, you learn something with every single one that you do. And with sports in general, you meet people, and it just becomes kind of a lifestyle.
So at the beginning, when you first started racing the Ironman distance, were you finishing at the top of your age group? Where, like, what, give me your first, couple of years. How were you finishing in your races?
Obviously, when I did my first 70.3 was Eagleman in Maryland. And I think I had a decent race, like 5 something and 5 hours and something, 5:10, 5:15. And that was my first one. So I was like, this is cool. I still didn't know what I was doing, though. I had no idea. And I had done a full, and I had done that. So, and I had done a few marathons, like I said. I think I was still kind of like, okay, I might do a few half marathons or a marathon or so, just to kind of train for this. And I started getting pretty good at the distance running at that point. And I think I want to say, out of, if there were like 15,000 people in the Pittsburgh Marathon, I want to say I was in the top 100 finishing overall. So my times were pretty good with half marathons. And I just looked at it like, if I'm going to get to where I want to be with Ironman, I need to focus just on Ironman, because I'm not getting that 4 or 5 hours or 6 hours or 7 or however long it takes you to swim and bike. I'm not getting that with going and like driving up to somewhere in PA or somewhere in Florida for a marathon. So I was like, I need to just focus on this, put the training in. And I started hearing about QT2 Systems, and they've helped me out a ton since everything's gone down with that.
Yeah,
for sure.
So you came to QT2 2018, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And so by that point, you'd already competed in several Ironmans. Did you have in your mind then that Kona was a possibility for you? Like, when did that become something that you're like, yeah, I think I might be able to get there?
Well, it was actually, I did the Great Floridian, and then I did Ironman 70.3 Eagleman. And then that same year, I would say 2013 or 2014, it would have been 2014 Eagleman. And then 2014 Ironman Louisville, I was within, I think, 3 or 4 slots of qualifying for Kona. So I remember sitting next to someone that qualified, and she was probably in the 35 or 40 year age group. And she said, she just looked at me. She went up to get her Kona slot, and she just looked at me and said, "You're going to get it one day. Stick with it." And I'm still friends with her, like on social media and everything. And thank her still to this day, because she just, like, people just give you that energy that you need and the positivity that you need, because you have to have that. You have to feed off the positivity, because the training and everything in life is just so hard. If you don't have that, you'll quit. And there's no way. There's maybe 1 or 2 people I know of that I personally know. There might be more, but there's maybe only 1 or 2 that have, they might have ran cross country or track in college, and okay, I'm going to go do an Ironman, and they bust out like a 9-hour Ironman or something. But there's not, even if you did run at the collegiate level where you swam, not many people do that their first time, or vice versa. Maybe they weren't runners, or maybe they had some other type of background. And even like the top pros, they go out and struggle on their first Ironmans, or 3, 4, and then they kind of start to click and get it. And everything's a process, and anyone will tell you that in the sport, any sport really. And that being said, every dog has their day. Sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you don't. So you have to have the mentality that, if you set a goal, stick with it and don't quit.
Yeah. So tell me about the race. What was your qualifying race?
The race where I qualified was Alene in 2021, and it was 120 degrees that day. So I think that actually worked in my favor. Not that I live in I do all my training here in West Virginia, everything I do. So I'll train in the winter when there's snow out. I'll take the road bike or mountain bike out in the grass and just ride up hills. I'll put the helmet on. If I fall, I'm in grass, no big deal. Just kind of brush it off a little. But that helps me mentally. Like this past winter, I was on the trainer way too much. And going into my first race, which was actually World Championships in St. George, IRONMAN World Championships in St. George, I had a torn ligament in my shoulder. I was rehabbing that, and I was just a mess, because I knew I did a little bit too much on the trainer, and I just needed to be outside a little more. And for me, I have to be outside. I know there's people who can just grind and grind and grind on the trainer, and that's awesome. Obviously, Pete Jacobs, so many people, Keenley, all those guys will tell you, and all the interviews and everything I watch, and teammates that we have on QT2, they'll stay on the trainer all winter. And I give them so much credit, because they go out and kill it. And I give them all the credit in the world, because personally, I don't know if I could do that many hours on a trainer. I did like probably 6 or 7 weeks straight of like 6-7 hour bike rides on the trainer.
Yeah.
And that almost did me in. Like, I just don't know how people do it. So definitely give props to anyone that has that mental fortitude for sure.
Yeah, it's tough going all the time on the trainer. So let's back up. Coeur d'Alene, 120 degrees. So tell me about your race. How'd you feel? How'd it go?
The race I felt very prepared for, like I kind of went on a tangent about. I train in the snow, so obviously it's different than 120 degrees. Going into June, I just came out of like training for 5 months in freezing cold. So a family friend that was an ex-Marine, he just kind of, I worked with him for about a year or so leading up to that. And he's really, obviously he's an ex-Marine. So he's very good, obviously trained by the best of the best. Just mental toughness and everything. And he was a very successful wrestling coach here in West Virginia. He and my dad taught and coached together for many years. So he's intense. So it was really cool working with him. And he just always told me of the Iceman. So he just said, if you're familiar with the Iceman's a guy who goes out and like sits in or does swims in like negative degree temperatures. So he just told me, you know, get it in your head, get it in your head that you can, no matter what it is, you can do it, and get your mind to it and don't quit. And I think of that every single day, him telling that to me, because that was just like chills given to me, really, just him saying it. And just like the storyline and everything that, you know, with the Iceman, I just thought that was really cool. And it kind of stuck with me. And Coeur d'Alene for sure. Just opposite though, because they're both extremes. And I feel like with endurance athletes, it's obviously testing your extremes, whether it's freezing cold or brutally hot temperatures. So I feel like that helped, just the mental preparedness. I did some rides and everything going into that. You know, it was June, so I had qualified for 70.3 Worlds in Hawaii just 2 weeks prior to that. So I was exhausted, honestly, just from all the training over the course of the winter. And then I actually got ran over by a truck and broke my spine. So that was a big process. Thankful to, you know, doctors around here, they got me put back together. And walking, alone, running and doing triathlon again. And then I had a broken wrist, scaphoid. So that was almost, I would say 2 months going into Hawaii. So I really hadn't swam that much going into that, but I had a pretty good race down there. Like I said, I qualified for 70.3 Worlds. I had a pretty good time. And then I feel like that kind of mentally got me ready for Coeur d'Alene and the heat and everything. And just being there and visualizing like, okay, this is Kona, this is what I want. I remember actually like going and like doing hill repeats up to Alene Drive and like touching the sign. So obviously I wanted it. And I knew that it didn't matter what the temperature was or going down that huge hill in Coeur d'Alene. I mean, it's steep if anyone's ever raced there. It's steep. And it's dangerous, and it can mess with you. Just that hill alone, you do it twice. So I was ready for that. And my sister and I had finished Coeur d'Alene, I want to say 4 years prior to my qualifying year. So I had been there. I knew what I was getting myself into with that race. I knew the course somewhat. It was changed a little bit, but it was primarily the same. Few odds and ends were different. The year my sister and I did it, it was actually harder, in my opinion, because there was it no wind? I want to say there was no wind. Yeah, there was no wind, and it was 110. It was I actually thought it was hotter. So the 2019, right? Or no, what did 2019? 2020. I'm sorry, 2020. I'm getting my years.
2021, you qualified. Yeah.
2021. It was 120, but I actually feel like there was a little bit of wind, so it kind of, I don't know, it kind of cooled you down and just gave you that. Even if it was just a little gust, it gave you a little bit of, breathing room that you needed just to kind of catch your breath and, move on to the next second or the next minute.
All right. So when did you know that you qualified for Kona?
I didn't know because I was right on the brink, and I knew that there were going to be more than a normal amount of slots available in Coeur d'Alene, which I was like, that's cool, because I just went through like 7 years of like, being within like 3 or 4 slots. And there were times I'd be like 7th or 8th or like 6th or 7th, 8th or 9th. And I would miss it by like 3 or 4 slots. And I really didn't know until they called my name. And they called it, and, it was just like, I couldn't even believe it. And I made it by 1 slot. So it was like, it was a great feeling. I'll never forget that feeling. And we were actually like, we were actually like, we had a plane flight leaving, and I'm like, I know it's going to be close. Like, I don't know if I'll make it, but it's going to be like within like 1 or 2 slots. I know that, like, I can't, like, even if we miss this plane flight, like, I can't go home. Like, there's no way. And then I remember, they called it, I got the last slot, and I went up and I was just signing the paper, and I'm just like, it was just like pouring, like, just all the emotions, just like as I'm signing it. And I remember going up to the line, and I had to specifically ask them, like, we're going to miss our plane. Do you mind if I skip a few people and fill all this paperwork out? And they were like, no, go right ahead. And I was like, thank you so much. Just like,
so you claimed your spot and made your flight.
Pardon?
I said, so you claimed your spot and made your flight.
Yes, we did both. And then, it honestly, it probably took a year to sink in. And now that it's here, I'm just like, okay, it's like within 2 months away. Like, I've had all this time to, like, prepare for it. A lot of times, like, let's say even in 2014, when I was within 3 or 4 slots of qualifying in Louisville, and most often, even, pros and some of the top age groupers, they qualify, and then within a month or 2, they go to Kona. So, it's been a ton of, it feels like forever that we've had to prepare. So I'm definitely excited for it.
Yeah. So you had a lot of near misses, as you said, over the years. What do you think was the difference between the near miss and the finally made it?
They offered more slots.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
They offered more slots than they normally do, because I think they were trying to have Kona that year, and then obviously ended up canceling it. And they were just like, this race, we're going to offer like 5 more slots in each age group than we typically do. And I still barely made it. So it's such a difficult puzzle piece to figure out. And even if you're not going in your age group or as a pro, like, they'll even tell you, it's relentless. It really is, because you can train your life away, you can put all the hours in, but when you get there, it's the course in you. It's not, and it really is who shows up too, because someone might have their day, and you might have trained more than them, you might have put more hours in than they did, you might have done 100 times more work and gone to more races and studied more, but they had a better day than you. So at the end of the day, they qualified, you didn't. So that's just the math to it. You can't, it's not a sport where you can just look at it as X's and O's, or like, okay, I'm going to train on this course for, a month or 2 prior to the race, because on race day, it might storm and you're not good in storms, or, it might downpour and someone's a better rider and, stronger in the wind than you. So you can't really predict anything. It's what happens on the race day. You just train and train and do what your coaches say, and then, you know, put your best effort in. That's all you can do.
Yeah. Well, it worked. You got it. So tell me now, Kona, you've waited a long time for it, all the years of near misses, then you qualify, you have to wait more than a year. So what excites you most about racing at the World Championships?
I think it's just everything, like all the years, my family and I traveled, and we'd get there and like, okay, I'm like 7th or 8th, you know, maybe I'll get a slot, sitting there, and it's like, okay, Kona, 1, 2, 3, 4, and they all take it, and it's like, that's awesome. I'd clap for them. I'm happy for them. They beat me. I'm never will I ever be that person that doesn't clap for someone or congratulate someone because they earned it. So, I mean, in my mind, I earned it that day in Coeur d'Alene because they offered more slots. You know, they don't always do that. I'd raced a lot. You know, I finished it. A lot of people weren't good in the heat, and I was able to, you know, just make it. And, you know, I personally feel like I deserved it, and I've trained really hard since then, specifically for Kona. And I've tried in my training, I've tried to think every single day, like, how does this relate to Kona? How does this race prepare me for Kona? You know, just everything I've done in my preparedness has been catered to Kona. And I feel like I finally, like, as we talk for this moment, I feel like I don't have any injuries, knock on wood, because that can change quick. But every race I've done, I've been injured. I've had something broken. I've had something, you know, out of place, my shoulder, something. So as of now, anything can happen. There's still a month or so, but as of now, I feel like I'm ready. I haven't like over raced myself to a point I'm like dying, which I have done in the past. And it was basically just because I wanted Kona that much. I would race 5, 6 Ironman or Ironman 70.3s a year. And I tried to space them out a little bit, but at the end of the day, I mean, there's only, you know, you can't make every single race. It's, you know, it's their call on when they put the date and the times and where they are and everything. So you can't control everything. A lot of things are out of your control.
Yeah. All right. Well, I want to just turn it over to Anne now for some questions. So, all right. So Anne, you've been working with Ryan now for 5 years. You're a mission plan coach. So can you explain a little about what that is and how that's different maybe from one-on-one coaching?
Yeah, so with QT2, we have a mission plan and one-on-one. It's also based on the athlete personality, because mission plan, basically they'll fill up a questionnaire and we have a call with the athlete, but it's not on a daily basis. So the athlete has like more freedom, and some actually like it because they don't like the pressure of having a daily coach, giving feedback. So I guess that's the main difference with one-on-one, is that they have their plan specific to their need in cycles to a target race, so focusing on maintenance or doing a sport focus block. But they have that weekly freedom where they don't have a coach saying, hey, you did great or you didn't good, and others, that's exactly what they need. So I guess that's the main difference.
Okay, so for Ryan, you prepared plans that were very individual for his needs based on his schedule, his goals, desires, his patterns of how he likes to train. It was really,
and I say with Ryan, it's really putting his training with all the races he had in. That was the first thing I noticed with him, was his passion for Ironman. And I think he described it really well. It was not even, I can't even say 70.3, but it's really about the Ironman distance. So sometimes he has like 3 in a row, and he always put like the maximum volume that he can put in. And yeah, so for him, the specificity of his plan was really to make him understand, but he's a smart athlete, so that's that was easy to deal with, but that we have to structure the plan with his A race and other race that will be in preparation. But I always told him that sometimes with fitness, with Ironman, we're aerobic engine. So sometimes it's not because you're in your or a tempo effort and all the specificity that you will succeed. Sometimes, even if we return to base training with just zone 1, that he can do well too. And he trusted that process. So that's how we made him happy to do all of his racing, while we were maintaining the structure of the periodization that he needed for improvement.
Okay. So as you have worked with him now over the last about 4 years, was there a point where you started looking and saying, yeah, I think he can do this, I think he can qualify? In time,
I actually almost like never knew how close he was to qualifying, because he's very humble. So that's never something he put up front. It was more his dream that he put up front. And I guess I'm a believer of the dream and the hard workers. So I knew at some point that it would come, and he's totally right. Even if they add more slot, and he spoke a lot about the professional field, and it's the same. Sometimes you have more slot, but it doesn't mean that it's easier. Actually, sometimes when you have the more spot and you think, oh, it's going to be the easy day, in the end, it's actually going to be your hardest day. So I think anyone that qualifies deserves the spot. And yeah, he just had his dream there, and his passion for endurance sport, long distance, and it just came together at one point.
Yeah. Oh, it gives me goosebumps. It's so exciting. So what would you say from your perspective, Anne, if you had one piece of advice to give to someone who wants to qualify for Kona, what's that piece of advice?
Well, I think Ryan, to me, is the perfect example. So it's a passion and being committed. That's the key. And then don't focus on the time that it'll take to qualify. And again, I'm using Ryan also experience. It's also learn from each Ironman that you do. And every time you return to an Ironman, it's do like it's almost your first one. Take the experience that you had before, but never forget that any Ironman it's different. So at any point you can have your day and make it happen. So yeah, the passion and the commitment. And then obviously at one point you have to put the volume and the training. As a coach, I'm not going to say, yeah, you can just sleep and dream about it and don't make sacrifice. Yes, at one point you do have to make the sacrifice to get that critical volume that we always preach, and the work commitment to do it. But then don't forget also your recovery time, because that's what is going to give the adaptation. If you're disappointed about an Ironman, don't forget that you did all the work and that you need that recovery time. Don't jump back into it and put more stress on the body, and it won't adapt to what you did or to the training that you did. So there's the artwork, but there's also the recovery and the time that you can spend with other things and your family. And that's very important to adapt and keep improving. And I think that's what I had on my list. But yeah, it's adapting to the sport and keeping that passion. And if you have the proper training and recovery, that's how you keep that fire in you, and you won't get the burnout at one point.
Yeah. Well, what you've done seems to be working. Ryan is full of fire, and so looking forward to tracking you in October. And thank you very much, and Ryan, both for joining us today and sharing your story.
All right,
Good
thank
luck.
you.
Good luck at
Thank
Kona.
you.
Thank you.
Good luck, Ryan.
Yeah.